Most people think the future is something we'll adapt to. This episode explains why that belief may already be outdated. There is a quiet assumption built into modern life that progress moves in manageable steps, that change arrives slowly enough for institutions, laws, and culture to respond, that when something powerful emerges, we will recognize it in time to debate it, regulate it, and decide what to do. This conversation begins by questioning that assumption, not emotionally, but structurally. The voice guiding this episode comes from someone who has spent more than a decade studying how intelligent systems behave when humans attempt to control them. Long before artificial intelligence became a public obsession or a competitive race, this work focused on a single question: can intelligence that surpasses human ability be reliably controlled by the people who create it? For many years, the answer seemed hopeful. With enough care, enough rules, and enough oversight, alignment appeared possible. But the deeper the research went, the more that confidence began to erode. What emerged was not one difficult problem waiting to be solved, but a repeating pattern. Every attempt to fix a single issue revealed many more underneath. Control did not converge towards stability. It fractured into layers of unresolved complexity. At the same time, the systems themselves grew more capable. More data made them smarter. More compute made them faster. More scale made them more adaptive. Progress in capability accelerated dramatically, while progress in understanding and control lagged behind. The gap between what these systems could do and what humans could reliably predict widened year by year. The episode draws an important distinction early on. What is often described as safety is not safety in the traditional engineering sense. It is patching. Constraints placed on top of systems whose internal decision-making cannot be fully explained or traced. These systems are not designed step by step in the classical way. They are trained, released, and then studied after the fact. Even the people who build them often discover new behaviors only once the systems are already in use. This leads to the first major reframing. Intelligence is not just another technology. It is not comparable to fire, electricity, or software. Intelligence is the thing that creates technologies. And once you create an entity that can outperform humans across domains, you are no longer operating a tool. You are interacting with an agent. The episode carefully removes the comfort of familiarity. Past inventions amplified human effort, but they did not replace human decision-making itself. This is different. An adaptive intelligence does not simply execute instructions. It forms strategies. It finds patterns. It identifies paths humans did not anticipate. And once it reaches a certain level of autonomy, small errors do not remain small. They propagate, compound, and accelerate faster than human oversight can respond. From here, the episode begins to unsettle a second assumption, that intelligence can be scaled without consequence. As systems become more adaptive, more general, and more autonomous, predictability decreases. The more capable the system, the less transparent its reasoning becomes. Correction no longer happens in advance. It happens after behavior has already emerged, often too late to fully contain. This opening section does not rely on fear or speculation. It relies on structure. It establishes that capability is advancing faster than understanding, and that the distance between the two is widening. The danger, as framed here, is not malice. It is momentum. Momentum driven by competition, incentives, and the belief that adaptation will always arrive in time. By the end of this first part, the episode has not made a claim about catastrophe. It has made a quieter point, that the rules humanity has relied on for managing technological change may no longer apply when the technology in question is intelligence itself. And if that is true, then the future may not wait for permission to arrive. With the foundation established, the episode shifts from structure to consequence. The question is no longer how these systems are built, but what happens once they begin to matter at scale. This is where abstraction gives way to timelines, not as prophecy, but as probability. According to prediction markets, lab leaders and independent researchers, artificial general intelligence may emerge within a few years, not decades, years. At that point, the episode explains, economic logic becomes unforgiving. If cognitive labour can be performed by a system that costs less than a monthly subscription, hiring humans for most computer-based work stops making sense. This is not framed as cruelty or conspiracy. It is framed as incentive alignment. Organisations that do not adopt cheaper, faster alternatives place themselves at a disadvantage. Adoption becomes a matter of survival, not ideology. The episode walks through this transition carefully. First, work that already lives inside computers is affected. Writing, research, analysis, customer support, planning, coordination. Then, as robotics advances, physical labour begins to follow. Humanoid machines may lag slightly, but the trajectory is clear. Capability arrives before social systems are ready to absorb it. When the question of retraining arises, the episode dismantles the premise itself. In past technological shifts, tools replace specific tasks, and new categories of work emerged. This time, the tool being built is a general worker. Any new category of work can also be automated. Advice cycles already reveal this collapse. First, learn to code. Then, become a prompt engineer. Then, even that role becomes unnecessary. Each escape route closes faster than the last. This is where the episode becomes personal without becoming sensational. Examples are introduced that feel creative, human, and supposedly irreplaceable. Conversations, teaching, media, leadership. The response is calm and methodical. A sufficiently advanced system can read everything ever produced, identify patterns that drive engagement, learn stylistic nuance, and optimize outcomes beyond human intuition. What feels uniquely human often feels that way only because replacement has not yet fully arrived. The episode emphasizes that resistance to this idea is not ignorance. It is psychological self-defense. People in nearly every profession believe their work cannot be replaced, not because they are arrogant, but because imagining replacement threatens identity. Drivers trust their intuition. Professors trust their presence. Creators trust originality. History shows this belief repeating itself across industries, right up until the moment it no longer holds. From here, the conversation widens beyond employment and into social structure. If work disappears for large segments of the population, what organizes daily life? What provides structure, meaning, and direction? The episode makes a careful distinction between material abundance and psychological stability. Free labor at scale could make goods and services cheap. Providing basic needs may be technically achievable. Meaning is not. Societies are not designed for mass idleness. Governments do not have systems built for unemployment at that scale. The episode does not speculate wildly about outcomes, but it does highlight the absence of preparation. Questions about purpose, social cohesion, and motivation remain largely unanswered. These are not secondary concerns, they are foundational. At this point, the episode confronts a common reassurance: regulation. Surely laws, oversight, and governance will keep things under control. The response is measured but unsettling. Distributed systems cannot be turned off with a single switch. Intelligent systems anticipate interference. Legal and moral frameworks assume human motivations, such as fear of punishment or loss. These assumptions may not apply. The conversation introduces an epistemic boundary. Once intelligence exceeds human intelligence across domains, prediction itself becomes unreliable. This is not drama, it is definition. You cannot reliably predict the behavior of something that consistently outperforms you at understanding, strategy, and adaptation. This is why science fiction struggles to portray true superintelligence. You cannot convincingly imagine a mind that is smarter than you. By the end of this section, the episode has shifted the listener's understanding again. The issue is no longer whether technology will change work, or even whether it will disrupt society. The issue is whether humans are prepared to make irreversible decisions about systems they may not be able to fully understand, regulate, or reverse once they cross a certain threshold. The central risk that emerges is not evil intent. It is momentum. Momentum driven by competition, speed, and the assumption that adjustment will always be possible later. This part of the episode leaves the listener with an unsettling realization. The most dangerous moments may not be loud or dramatic. They may look like progress proceeding exactly as planned. In the final movement, the episode steps away from timelines and technology and turns toward consequences that feel existential rather than technical. A central distinction is made that reframes everything that came before. Previous technologies were tools. They amplified human effort, but they did not replace human decision-making itself. What is being built now is different. It is not a better instrument. It is an agent. Something capable of forming goals, adapting strategies, and acting in ways that humans may not be able to anticipate or restrain. This distinction becomes critical when the conversation turns to control. Traditional systems of governance are built around human psychology. Laws work because people fear punishment. Regulations work because people can be held accountable. These assumptions quietly collapse when applied to an entity that does not fear prison, loss, or death. The episode frames this as a category error. Humanity is preparing to regulate a fundamentally non-human intelligence using tools designed for human behavior. From here, the episode confronts the idea of inevitability. If every major nation and company is racing forward, doesn't resistance become pointless? The response is firm but restrained. Inevitability is often used as a moral shortcut, a way to avoid responsibility. Incentives still shape behavior. Risk still alters decisions. If the people building these systems fully internalized that the consequences could be catastrophic for them personally, not abstractly for society, behavior would change. Self-interest, not idealism, is presented as the lever most likely to slow reckless acceleration. The episode then examines regulation and prohibition more closely. Even if strong rules exist today, the cost of building advanced systems continues to fall. What requires enormous resources now may eventually require far less. Scarcity-based control mechanisms weaken as technology becomes cheaper and more accessible. Enforcement becomes increasingly difficult. This problem is not isolated to artificial intelligence. It reflects a broader pattern in which world-altering capabilities are becoming accessible in multiple domains at once. At this point, the conversation widens beyond artificial intelligence to existential risk more generally. Advanced intelligence is not framed as the only danger, but as a multiplier. It can accelerate other catastrophic pathways, including those humans already struggle to manage. The core issue is not any single scenario, it is unpredictability. Just as an animal cannot anticipate all the ways a human might harm it, humans cannot reliably anticipate how a vastly more intelligent system might act. The episode then addresses a critical, but often misunderstood point. Even the creators of modern systems do not fully understand how they work internally. These systems are trained, not programmed line by line. Their internal representations emerge through exposure to massive amounts of data. Engineers test them to discover what they can do after they already exist. This reverses the logic of classical engineering and undermines confidence in claims of total control or guaranteed safety. The focus then shifts towards the individual listener. What should a person do with this information? The episode resists offering comforting instructions. For most people, there is little direct influence over global technological trajectories. The value lies in awareness. Awareness changes who people trust, which claims they accept, and how critically they evaluate assurances of safety. Asking for clear explanations rather than vague promises becomes an act of responsibility. A philosophical extension follows, not as a detour, but as a continuation of the same logic. If intelligence can create worlds, and if simulated environments are approaching realism, then the probability that reality itself is constructed becomes non-trivial. This idea is not used to strip life of meaning. Pain still hurts, love still matters, ethics still apply. The only shift is perspective. Meaning does not disappear simply because the universe may not be base reality. As the episode approaches its conclusion, it rejects both panic and resignation. It argues for restraint, humility, and deliberate choice. Narrow, beneficial systems can deliver enormous value without crossing irreversible thresholds. Racing toward uncontrolled general intelligence is framed not as bravery, but as risk taken without consent. This is not an argument against progress, it is an argument for survival. The final message is quiet but unmistakable. This is not a distant future problem, it is a present one. Decisions being made now shape paths that may not be reversible later. The episode does not tell the audience what to believe, it leaves them with something more enduring, a way of seeing that cannot easily be undone. Once that frame is in place, optimism and pessimism become secondary. What matters is whether humanity slows down long enough to understand what it is creating before crossing a boundary it may never be able to step back from.